awesome job there by Rhiannon. Yeah, we make some noise. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into the game. But before that, players, take your stations. And we want to have a thank you to everyone who was able to make this competition possible. To the district admins, to Dr. John Garcia, to Roger Brosmer, Alan Tyner, Chris Nezer, and Ashley Catanzona.
All right. And of course, with those thank yous, we would also be remiss if we didn't say thank you once again to all the people who made tonight's competition possible. And that's going to be coming from the Carrot Group, Herf Jones, the Knowledge Society, Orange Coast College, and Steel Series, because those are also the people that got the trophies onto this stage that our players are playing for, the championship rings that are on the line, the $1,000 in gaming supplies that's going to be going to the winning team. There's so much that these players are playing for, and it really wouldn't be possible without those sponsors. So a big thank you to them, as, I mean, half of the energy that is here tonight is going to be obviously for those very sweet trophies, and we are getting so hyped up and ready to go. But of course, some of you are like, yeah, I'm hype, but what's Valorant? And we're here to help answer that question. Not only will we be walking you through the game, but we're also going to explain some of the key points of the game of Valorant. It is an offensive and defensive game, so the offensive side is going to be trying to protect, plant, and make sure that the defenders don't defuse the spike. They're going to be playing agents or characters that are able to gather information on where the defending side might be. They're also going to be using utilities such as flashes, drones, and ultimate abilities that are going to help them enter onto sites and counter opposing sides' abilities. They're going to be split amongst the map, going in different directions to make it more difficult for the defensive side to guess where they're going to be attacking from. And of course, this would not be possible without communication between players to make it easier to pinpoint enemy locations.
You said it was two-sided, Becky. Now we're going to move on to the defense. You have to protect all sites, whether that be 2 or 3, depending on some maps, from the attackers, so they can't plant the spike. Then you'll be using your abilities to make sure that that happens, whether you slow down a push or deny it outright. When you lose a teammate as a defender, you're going to want to swing into place and take a fight to make sure you keep the agent numbers even. And of course, as the defenders, you get to hide away and surprise any attackers, catching them and getting pretty much a free confrontation. And of course, you're going to be playing agents like Sage and Cypher, who fall under the Sentinels category, to slow down the attackers. We're going to be moving over to Bind.
That is going to be our first map of the evening. We have multiple different maps that you will be seeing in this best of 3 series. And as Ashkan just mentioned, we are going to be starting off on the map of Bind. Let's make some noise to get our players hype as we load in and get into character selection between these 2 squads. That's why I like these people.
Man, so much fire in the room.
All right, as we queue up going into agent selection, I mean, Downey, they've got a little bit of an uphill battle here, as Warren are going to be the defending champions here. But, I mean, talking to the teams beforehand, Downey seems like they're quite prepared. They said that maybe some of their communication needed some work, but they did a lot of work leading up to this that is hopefully going to help bridge that gap.
And I mean, Warren were very confident in themselves. If they have a winning streak, of course they want to keep it up. We'll see the agents that they'll select to bring themselves towards victory. It's a sink or swim kind of situation here, Becky. At best of 3 series, though, both teams have a shot at taking this all the way.
All right, it is interesting to see actually how different these 2 team compositions are going to be. So I think we are seeing a lot of comfort picks between both of these teams. And there's certainly a lot to be said for going for comfort picks as opposed to kind of tried and true what all the pros in the game are playing. And going into what Warren is starting off with, I mean, I'm pretty excited to see something like a Phoenix coming into play. That's a very aggressive character that I think he's going to make for some flashy plays once we get up on the screen here.
Absolutely. I mean, he's got an amazing ultimate ability that lets you run it back, as they say, a second chance at life when you go into the site. But we were talking about yesterday when we were watching other schools, the meta, and it looks like right now, Downey, they have an idea of what is kind of regulated in higher levels of play. They've got something going on. They've got something cooking. And we'll see whether or not it comes to life here.
I mean, we did get to overhear talking to Coach Beaver just the amount of extra work that is going in, those early hours, those staying late after school, and trying to make sure that they're going to be the ones to take this trophy from Warren's hands. They didn't come to mess around.
Not at all. Already we're seeing that precedent set with an optimal composition, double controller meta being played. Let's get right into the game.
Let's get into it. Will the pro-level composition be strong enough to beat the comfort picks that Team Warren are coming with? We're about to find out. All right, first round is going to be a little bit lighter on weaponry, but that's pretty safe to say. If you're interested, you can always take a peek at that loadout section and that column. And bigger is better as we get more and more into a game.
Looks like we're moving into Hookah. Team Warren stacking as 5. They're ready to send everything out for this attack, starting with the Guiding Light, a flash through the wall, but a Viper Molly by Zap is going to stall time.
Ooh, very good to deny vision there. Really just trying to block as many of the attacking players off as possible. And so far, so good. You can see the rotations are already coming through rather early on. And that's always good to see from a defending side like Downey, knowing that your first initial hold is good enough to at least keep your team holding on and force the attacking side to go for those rotations.
Warren, though, adapting so quick, that's not something we usually see, so that practice has been paying off. It is the right move as they get the spike down rather easily, but all is in the hands of their post plant now. They do have 2 mollies to work with, at least they should, so they could buy a lot of time.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is actually an interesting situation as Downey starts to come in onto the site, able to get a lot of trades back and forth here as only one player of Warren remains for but a moment, as Sun is going to be the one to gather up those final few eliminations and get the first round into Downey's favor.
An amazing start to the map. Winning that first round is going to give them a little bit of extra cash in their back pocket. That's going to be a force up into what we call the anti-eco. You're going to see Spectres, Stingers. There is a Guardian on the board there, not usually seen, but I think a good pick nonetheless.
Yeah, and a lot of what you're going to see, you will be able to tell, are going to be instant replays so that you can take another look at what just happened in the round before, while the players in that time are going to be going for those rebuys, setting up for the start of each of these rounds, and we're just trying to fill some of that air that maybe otherwise would seem a little anticlimactic to a lot of you as viewers. Sun, a great early pick here, is going to then be able to just blast back to safety. A lot of mobility and an early peak going very successfully for Downey.
Sands trying to use the Trailblazer to make some space, but those paint shells from the B site land right in front of them, immediately forcing them off of the Trailblazer. Any amount of damage will keep you off of that ability. And then we see another Trailblazer by SOS to respond in kind, but they're not going to see anything.
Yeah, this is always one of those difficult places if you're on the attacking side or even the defensive side. Whoever gets that first player kind of taken down early is automatically set on the back foot, strictly because in a simple numbers game, it is that much more difficult for you to get onto a site. And SOS, alongside Sun, holding great angles and able to take all of the attacking side down.
This is such coordinated use of utility. You're seeing that snake bite come out with perfect timing. Zap, as well as Sun, working together to make sure that there is not a single second where the attackers can just jump out of hookah for free.
Yeah, and you can see it on this replay as well. They tried to go for that setup, got that blaze set up to try and block off a lot of those cubby areas that were normally really difficult to clear, but the amount of utility that's coming out from Downey to kind of counteract that drop area is just working out so well. And I think it makes a lot of sense that we're seeing Warren put a lot more of their attention over towards this A site after what just happened in the last round.
100%, but it looks like Downey has anticipated a similar move. So they have enough bodies on the A site to hunker down and prevent Warren potentially from getting in. We'll have to see how Warren wants to take this approach with 2 over in showers. A pincer approach to taking this site.
Oh, the peak narrowly just doesn't happen. It doesn't line up well enough. Sun able to get one, but it's a trade back and forth. The numbers are even. It's anyone's game right now as the spike does get planted, and Warren set themselves up for the post plant here.
Zin trying to play around the corner, but it's Poom who finds him first. Now in U-Haul, Zap trying to work their way forward. Here's a crossfire from bench and the default plant, but unfortunately isn't yet broken until Pool takes the tempo, immediately traded out, and Zap closes the round. That's number 3. TGK, Team Downey, the Vikings, taking round number 3 in a row, denying the bye round victory to Warren.
I mean, okay, this is going to maybe be a little bit of a cheesy thing to mention. Team Downey also are going by the Good Kittens, which is what TGK stands for. And the way that Valorant has changed in the last literal month is that you can only make a name change once a year. So the fact that this entire team has said, yeah, we're going to change all of our names to match with the same TGK shows you the amount of dedication that they have to playing as a team.
Oh, yeah. They got a couple of years together. They're here to take the title out of Warren's grasp, and they want to keep it for years to come. We'll see if Warren will rebuttal. Right about now, it's 0-3, but they're working out. There's still fire under them. There's still the soul yet. We watch them working their way up towards B, getting any bit of utility coming towards them. But unfortunately, the showstopper cannot be halted. Sun finding one with their ultimate ability.
Yeah, the showstopper, its name may be, but the show is not close to over. Flash can come out, and SOS is going to make a great peek into 2 players, as well as Zin perfectly timing that Astra smoke that's going to be able to block off for long enough to defuse the situation after that initial gunfight. And SOS able to go jousting back and forth. Unfortunately, runs out of ammo, but Sun is there to clean up that final pick, and Downey are off with a strong 4-0 here.
I gotta be honest, Becky, it comes down to the patience, diligence, utility usage that Downey are showing right now. Warren, they've demonstrated competence in rotating around the map. I think that's something we have to give them credit for. But it's so hard to force the utility out of a Viper and an Astra.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you mentioned it before we even came onto this map. They're going for that kind of pro-level strategy. This is the team composition that a lot of the highest level of players are using. And there's a reason that they're using it. If you watch their VODs, if you study what they're doing, much like in normal sports, you can kind of try and take a page out of their playbook. And that's exactly what Team Downey is doing. And it's allowing for them to have one of the strongest defenses that is in the game of Valorant currently.
It's definitely one of the best executions that I've seen at the high school level. Spike is now going down though. Team Warren, having successfully made it onto the site and finding one, look to secure this round, but they don't know that. Maybe they're being approached from the flank. The boom block will indicate. Meanwhile, Zeros is wreaking absolute havoc across the site.
A beautiful one to be picked up by Warren. As you mentioned, Zero's really shining brightly in that round. And if anyone is going to shine brightly, it makes sense that it would be none other than a Phoenix, using that run it back ultimate to be able to gather a lot of information about where those defensive sided players are playing and be able to eliminate them swiftly upon getting onto the site. Not to mention that that was the first time that we've really seen Downey try to go for a kind of flank situation, and they immediately got shut down, which I think is very good for Warren. Good on them for being able to put pieces of utility back there to be able to tell when they're being flanked, and good for them to capitalize on top of it.
Right now, kind of shifting the tempo away from the B site. Now they use that Trailblazer, but because of a recent update, that trap wire has to be broken manually, and it just recently has been after being spotted. So A main potentially opened up, but still Warren just needs a little bit more map control. Right? You don't want to make it too obvious where you're coming from. You need some alternative approaches to entering the site, a wider amount of angles to be able to take more optimal engagements. But that doesn't seem to be what's happening. SOS doing a little bit of damage to scare away anyone pushing showers.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a stalemate here between these two teams, but after a little bit of a collision, Team Warren is going to be able to push far enough ahead to be able to start to get onto the site. Zeros is going to be the first one to find contact there, but Pooh is going to make quite the statement right back, and all of a sudden only 2 players remain from the side of Warren. And unfortunately for the side of Warren, they are hanging out in a very similar location. Pooh is on the hunt. The spike is halfway defused, and while this seems like the correct amount of utility, that halfway defuse is going to be more than enough for Zap to finish that one off. Viper's Pit online, and Downey with 5 points to Warren's 1.
Team Warren trying to play for the post plant there, and the vision was very clear. Using the orbital strike in combination with Brimstone's Molly to buy extra time until the spike can detonate. But with the rest of the team falling as fast as they did, Aorlov's not enough ability to stall solely by themselves. So still the right idea, just unfortunate timing there. Team Downey coming through with a strong presence and the game awareness to push through instead of just remaining on the spike.
Oh, and a very quick use of this Viper's Pit, not even going to worry about waiting to use it across other rounds. Zap goes ahead and deploys it right away. And on the other entrance of B, Sun awaiting, anticipating the jump peek, and 7 is not going to be able to get away with anything.
But is there another daring to swing? A camera forces Sun off the angle. Now they have to be careful in re-clearing. They do. A nice little jiggle in the shoulder peek down long to clear it. Now we see Sens going down A. Again, Sky is known for gathering information effectively. And what better way than popping the ultimate, the Seekers?
Yeah, the Seekers will, in fact, tell the side of Warren just how many players are hanging out close to this site. But now with the amount of utility that they've used to try and get onto this site, I mean, all of Downey has made the rotation necessary to get into a good defensive position here, and Warren still haven't been able to move on.
We're watching that heal get popped by SOS to bring teammates back up to full health. Zap alone in Hookah. The Viper's Pit, their sole tool, installing the enemy team. And it is doing more than enough work. It's going to force the attackers to go through Belong. They only have
10 seconds.
10 seconds left to plant the spike. SOS is waiting for them in the back. Will they swing through? Their shots find true. And that is going to be the plant denied.
One player remaining, but that one player, as you mentioned, is not enough. If they don't get the plant down in that minute 30, it goes the way of the defenders. So Downey continue to hold on strong to their lead. Now, going into a little bit of game schematics here, Team Downey has 6 points. A first half is going to be a guaranteed 12 rounds, and the match of Valorant is played first to 13. So, Team Downey have secured themselves an even first half, because the most that Warren could possibly do at this point is get the next 5 rounds and even us up to a 6-6 before we switch sides.
That indeed. But right now, with the way that their credit economy is looking, they'll have to dig deep on this round to snowball an advantage through acquiring tools from the enemy team. The Guiding Light will provide a little bit of information to the skull. The fact that it didn't pop tells Warren that nobody is close by, and so they get to walk a little further before finding an engagement.
A lot of utility being used by Warren, but none of it really following up to a push onto site. 3 players concussed by that single Trailblazer, and that's blocking off and eating up a lot of time, especially when the stim beacon was just thrown down.
Joke's over.
Oh, Zap playing in the smoke. Nice and cheeky. Here's the spike go down. Do they spray through? No,
Spike
found
planted.
by Poom as soon as that sky smoke disappears. It's 2 defenders left, but Sun and the operator are a match made in heaven as they toss a nade into the cubby. It's not going to quite hit the brimstone that's tucked.
Oh.
Still, though, finding a second, Becky.
I mean, you said it, Sun. Feeling comfortable with this operator. Unfortunately for Sun, though, an operator maybe isn't exactly the weapon that you want to have in hand. Really good for long-range fights, not really good for you to get up close and try to go for a defuse. So this is a situation where we're going to see Sun go for what's called a save. Downey will not win this round. It will go the way of Warren, but Downey is going to hold on to one of the most expensive pieces of weaponry in the game to hold on to it into the next round. So a good round for Warren, showing that they had enough prowess to get onto the site and avoid one of those difficult pieces of weaponry to deal with, but a good choice coming out from Sun to save and use this, furthering the economy of Downey into the further rounds.
Speaking of economy, that was Team Warren's save round as well going into it. So for them to be able to pick that back up shows just how well coordinated that they are. And we want to take note of the fact that you mentioned the operator's not something you want to have on the retake. So the only eliminations that Sun was finding was anyone who was willing to swing into them. And speaking of swings, right now Warren are taking their time because they don't want to get swung on. They've already felt the power of a pop flash before. They don't want to fall for it again.
Yeah, and you can also see that we're using a lot of these pieces of utility to clear this garden area. Previously on defensive rounds, Downey has put a lot of power into holding that area of B site. And this time around, Warren says, all right, we're going to use a lot of utility, make sure that we can take that space. Since we've seen you in previous rounds, put a lot of attention here. And just as they're able to do that, and potentially a downfall in Downey's part here, saying that they're going to give up that space and not fight for it in the same way that they have previously, means that Warren has been able to put the spike down, and that means that the ball is now in Downey's court.
Downey's court indeed. And what a way to launch the ball. It'll be a showstopper, but unfortunately will not connect because the competition is eliminated before the rocket even lands. What a smooth retake, Becky.
Absolutely smooth. Okay, when I was talking to Downey before going on tonight, I talked to their team captain, Isaiah, and he was saying that one of the biggest strengths of Downey is that they're really good at playing together. And I feel like we haven't seen just how true that was until this exact moment. That retake was absolutely sublime from the side of Team Downey.
I'll tell you what, this level of coordination, as a student at Cal State Northridge with a Valorant team of our own, I think Team Downey might just give us a run for our money.
I mean, they very well might. All right, we will be going to a timeout here. This is something that you can do in competitive matches of Valorant, where a team is going to have a minute to discuss exactly where things are going wrong, where they can make improvements. And typically it's a way for them to kind of try and have a little bit of a comeback. All right, we are going to be coming back to us here for a moment. And Ashkan, give us a little explanation. I was under the impression it was a timeout, but you're under the impression it might be something a little bit different.
Yeah, so while we undergo a round rollback to go ahead and fix up whatever's going on with that timeout, I think I also want to talk about conditioning. This is a little bit of a side thing that happens with Riot Games. You know how it goes. You have a bug here and there with the timeout feature in a custom game. But, Becky, with the way that Downey are playing with their utility, we actually get to dive a little bit deeper into the game of Valorant and talk about conditioning, which anyone here who's taken AP Psych might recognize that term. And it's something that we can actually apply to Valorant as well, where Downey, they're set up on the defense every single round, starting to look the same. And at a moment's notice, they can swap it up to catch their opponent by surprise.
And it's actually something that we got to see in that last round, as you're mentioning. We previously, again, got to see them really holding a very far forward defensive maneuver. And in that final round, they did decide to go for a little bit of a change. They decided to give up space, let the enemy team go for a really aggressive plant, and then decide to just retake the space afterwards. And it's just a difference of deciding exactly how you're going to play the round, where you're putting a lot of those resources, and where you're going to kind of try and trip up your opponents based on the information that you've been able to gather.
And with all of that set up and said, let's get right back into the game.
Yeah, let's get a little bit of a cheer for our production, trying to make sure that everything runs smoothly here, because honestly, they're making sure that all of this is possible and making sure that we get to see those sweet shots coming out from Sun.
Wow. That kind of opening pick is something that you can only see from a high-quality team. And I mean, this is just being proven time and time again. Warren, though, fighting hard. We see them walking up slowly.
Oh, okay, so this is actually something new that we're going to see from the side of Warren as well. So this is what is affectionately in the game of Valorant called a little bit of a lurk, where you don't exactly play with your team. You kind of go and try to put a lot of attention strewn across different portions of the map. Unfortunately for Poom, it doesn't go as you would normally intend for it to go. Wasn't able to get a pick, and it does actually fall. But hopefully that is going to make it a little bit difficult for Downey to decide where they should be putting their defensive forces.
Now, what Poom does succeed in is getting information for the rest of the team. Unfortunately, Warren walk right on into the hookah setup that has been so consistent in Downey's default of the defense, which, folks, if you don't know, the default is what is considered the regular process that each team goes through throughout a round. It is a way to get information. It is a way to set up so that you can gather information and proceed with some level of confidence.
And now as we go into one of the two final rounds of this first half, Team Downey 8-2, so they're looking to get themselves into a very nice place before going on to their attacking side. And this time around, we're going to see a very different setup here from the defensive side. These tripwires are really being a thorn in the side of Warren. But, I mean, luckily for Warren, once they move on to the defensive side, they should be able to be just as tricky with it.
They have that potential, especially with the chamber. Right now, a fight breaking out with the players in U-Haul. Cypher cages left and right to cut the line of sight. And I like this Boombot to clear the corner safely.
Spike down A.
There are no slackers on the side of Downey. Everything placed with precision. 9-2. And this might be a double-digit half. And Becky, that is a significant type of half to have.
Oh, yeah. So, again, the match is first to 13, but because of the way that economy resets once we change halves, it really does kind of put a shift. You typically, the lowest you want to go on a half to still be considered in the good graces of how Valorant economy works is an 8-4 half. Warren doesn't have a chance at that, but there is a phrase, the 9-3 curse, for a reason, where it seems like you could potentially be down and out and things can still go your way. And especially since we're seeing a double Sentinel composition from Warren, maybe a 9-3 is more than what they need once they move to defense.
They're heavily banking on the second half of the map. We'll have to see when we get there, but for now, it's SOS being pushed off of elbow. And Zero's utilizing the run it back, not to create space, but to plant the spike safely, knowing full well that players could be swinging out of elbow there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. That's actually the second time that we've seen Zeros go for that strategy. And while it's usually not considered one of the optimal things to do with that ultimate, I actually like that decision here. If you're a team that is struggling to get onto site and you know that your job is going to be run on, get the bomb down, and move on, you might as well be using it to make sure that you're able to do so safely. As Warren able to set up this post plant in a great way that just makes SOS a fall prey to 7 and that long range piece of weaponry. And we do have ourselves a 9-3 half here.
Yeah, if you believe in superstition, this is Warren's opportunity to make a comeback, a sweeping return, if you would. And you mentioned that double Sentinel possibility, what they have in mind, the trap wires combined with Chamber's trademark, could be crazy.
Yeah, we're going to take a peek at some of these highlights as we talk about some of the things that Downey did really well and some of the things that Warren could potentially emulate. As we've been saying, the Chamber and that Cypher are going to be pretty exponential in helping them find success on the defensive side. And we are actually going to see both of those Sentinels do a little bit of a split up and really just try to work with those teammates as they're able to.
Oh, Zero's kind of jiggling around this corner. Gets the line of sight on Cypher's arm. But are they able to differentiate between two different types of footsteps? Doesn't matter either way. Throws the curveball, swings into it.
Yeah, rough start here for Warren, trying to be aggressive and get the better of the attacking side. But I think, as you mentioned, it was kind of a situation where even if it didn't end up going in that unfortunate way, Zeros was peeking into two people. Even if he didn't know it, that was a little bit of a rough start for them. And we'll see if Team Downey decide to go ahead and capitalize off of where they were able to get an early pick here.
And remember, those two Sentinels are still online, so the tripwires should be active. We're seeing, speaking of activity, double satchel out onto the site. 7, line of sight cut off. Also Molly, Sen's coming around the corner to try and save them. All of a sudden, the agent headlines even up. It's 3-3. Spike has been planted though. Warren now dealing with father time.
Oh, trying to go for that joust, and Sun falls prey to the third pick in the round from Sense before falling to SOS. It is a 2v1. The defuse has to happen from Orlov's here, and Warren, unfortunately, a 1v2 is a little bit too difficult to fight through, and Downey find themselves double digits and the advantageous economy to start this second half off.
Yeah, we were expecting that first round to snowball in, and we are seeing that. This is a tough decision to make now for Warren. Do they want to save and play for the 11th round and try to streak everything together, or do they want to do what is a force buy here to try and leverage something and maybe have a bit more wiggle room later on? But it seems like they're just going to go for the save.
Yeah, I mean, we are in map number 1, so I like deciding to just go ahead and play it safe. It is, as we say, a marathon, not a sprint, and so deciding to just play things a little bit slower, try and play things safer, I think is a sensible decision at this point in the tournament.
Poon, however, making themselves that first pick on the defense. Without having trips to work with, they want to make magic happen. Doesn't work out in their attempt on the long angle. Sun!
Aggressive!
With the shotgun over at Pipes and CT, holding down the only place that Warren could feasibly approach from. 7 with the Headhunter is going to finish the job, however. They will have answers to the questions that Downey are posing.
Yeah, very nice start there from Warren, trying to move into a place where you can see the enemies, but unfortunately, SOS is going to be the one with line of sight and with the shots. 11 points to the side of Downey, who have come onto the scene running.
An amazing showing, not just by the team, but the crowd as well. All this energy and love for their players is awesome to see.
It really is. I mean, we always talk about how great it is just to see the amount of support for esports in general at the high school and middle school level. But seeing that the rest of the school not only is enjoying it as well, but here to cheer them on, it just makes me so happy.
That indeed. Sun walking up with the boombot to get a little bit of information, forces Sens out. And they were close enough to hear the drop from Hookah. So there goes SOS to further that lead, not just from territory, but into an elimination.
Oh, trying to make an explosive entry onto site, but it gets shut down between Orlovs and Sense. There Zin, though, she's trying to make just as flashy of an entrance. And unfortunately, the rest of the team gets shut down, so it is all left up to her here. 33 HP, but it's going to try and stay tricky. That tripwire, though, unfortunately, going to be the thing that makes being tricky that much more difficult.
Now, this is the kind of situation where Zin is kind of working around luck and timing, neither of which were in their favor this time around. Warren break the streak, break the curse, and find themselves a 4th round.
They do indeed, and this is a good place for them, to be a good place for them to start to turn this around. Their wiggle room in reality is only losing one more round, and then they're going to be backs up against the wall. So if there was a time for them to start to bring it back and not lose those first 3 of a half in a row like we saw in that first half, this is exactly how we need to be seeing it happen. But unfortunately for the side of Warren, despite that last round win, they're not able to fully buy up in a way that they would like. And that could end up being a little bit of their undoing here as Downey have complete full buys.
So that's kind of what the justification is for Team Warren to pick Chamber, right? Is that from a position of being behind in the credit economy, they can still utilize a minimal amount of credits to power that Headhunter ability on Chamber to be able to take an aggressive interaction with the enemy. But we haven't really been seeing that. That's mostly been from Warren's Phoenix.
Yeah, it has been, unfortunately, for the side of Downey. I was about to say that Trailblazer wasn't able to suss out where those tripwires were, but thankfully the quick jump up from those players was actually able to eliminate that tripwire and make sure that that wasn't going to be messing anybody up, as Warren trying to see if they're able to hear where enemies are lurking about. Zeros is going to be the first to grab a pick, try to gather more information with the run it back, but it's not going to be able to find very much. A 7 is going to try and hold down the 4 on B. Ooh, okay. This is quite the play that we're seeing here from Downey.
Rotating around, coming through the short, but Zero spots the first. They use the curveball, flashing themselves in the process.
Yeah, rough plays did manage to tag up a few players there as well, but not able to win that fight out. Warren has the agent advantage here, so sticking together is going to be a key portion of them getting back onto the site and shutting down the final remaining Downey player. Sense picks up 3, and Warren find themselves 5. They continue to hold on and pull some of these rounds together.
The icing on the cake there for Warren is that they get to claim the weapons of the enemy to bring their economy into a much better place. So they don't even have to make expenditures on their side for the next round.
All right, and now this is what the timeouts are supposed to look like. They have 60 seconds to talk about what they're going to change as far as their strategies are concerned. When you're on the attacking side, a lot of the tempo is kind of defined by where you're kind of peeking out, where you're intending to go, the way that you use your utility. On the defensive side, you can kind of sit back, and if nothing happens, you're going to win the round. So you're all more than happy to just sit back, relax, and enjoy. But while we're going through this timeout and while Downey are deciding what they're changing about their strategy, we're going to take a look at some of these replays here and some of the difficulties of trying to get that spike down while some of those damage-dealing abilities are put down onto the field.
I wasn't expecting a Molly plant denial lineup.
It's kind of cool.
It is. These players have already impressed me enough with their coordination, but from Warren to have that in their back pocket to buy themselves some extra time, that's a level of studying that I thought was only reserved for academics.
Well, I mean, it seems like a lot of these players take this at an academic level. And honestly, I'm impressed. When I was talking to some of the players, I talked to multiple players with higher than 4.0 GPAs. And I'm just like, how are you this good at this game and having a higher than a 4.0 GPA? Like, I wish that I had been as studious and also as good at video games as you were.
I mean, Alan mentioned it earlier, right? Playing games develops your brain in a way that enables you to problem solve. And this is what these players are doing, figuring each other out. They are each other's problems, and their teammates are their solutions.
All right, multiple players going to try and push through Bath here. Going to see if they can get on to this A site, take care of a lot of these pieces of utility. Are making it difficult to do so. A save round for Downey, so one that we would anticipate them to not look as strong on, and one for Warren to take down. But that means, as a result, they're playing with that much higher of a level of precision.
Out come the paint shells to force a repositioning. Boom, still keeping their calm in that situation to find the head dink against the opposing Rays. The fort of A site held down perfectly. Not a single player lost on the side of Team Warren yet.
There we go. That's a nice pop flash into peek from Zeros there to take care of Zin. A lot of peeking happening and aggression from the defensive players as their numbers increase upon their opponents.
We see the guiding light coming through. Zeros around the corner. Stops the peek just in time to land the dink against that Sky, and that'll be round 17 on the board.
All right. Team Warren have found themselves 3 in a row now, and they're looking to be in a pretty good spot. This is what we kind of talked about, what they need to be doing if they're going to take back a lot of control in this game. And they're finding their stride on this defensive side, which we kind of anticipated from their team composition.
You are divided.
Cosmic Divide going out to create some space. Sun pushing through. Out goes Sens with the Trailblazer to try and create some space, but with the most recent patch, it's not going to concuss. Instead, Zeros and Boom who are able to find the opening 2. Still, though, not able to stop the plant, Becky.
Yeah, that Cosmic Divide is going to fall, and Sen's able to see just a little bit of where Zin went to go hiding. Downey has been able to get this spike planted, but the agent advantage is in the hands of Warren. A lot of pieces of utility still to fight through with the remaining Downey members, though.
A little bit of information there. Out of Sens' guiding light.
Last player
Zap.
standing.
Swinging off of it, able to find one.
Oh, Zin, are we going to be able to peek in enough time? Almost makes it work. Finds 3, but when you're playing against 4, 3 is not quite enough. A team ace, every single one of the players of Warren getting a piece of that pie and finding themselves 7, putting together a nice little streak here.
4 in a row total, 3 of them being defuses, tells us as the casters, Becky, that the post plant by Team Downey needs to find something different to create success.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is coming down to some of these initial picks. When Downey was on the defensive side, we got to see Sun get a ton of early picks, and that was a huge instrumental part of them having a lot of control and taking the tempo back into their favor. We haven't seen that as much since Downey has moved to the attacking side, and once again, they're on a save. This is a round that I would not expect them to win unless they're able to use their utility superbly.
Yeah, this composition of theirs, super defense heavy. And it seems like, although their defense was super well rehearsed, we're not seeing the same level on the attack.
A lot of smokes coming out to try and block off the line of sight and stop the attacking side from being able to hold on with strong aggression. Downey, as a result, trying to see if they can find success elsewhere.
Sun still has the showstopper in their pocket, though. Could make a play with it, is going to pop it out into the U-Haul, but taken out by Zeros. An ult of their own in response. Goes through a short, trying to find anybody.
Oh, huge from Zeros.
1, but 2.
Yeah, 2 to follow up that initial pick. A very aggressive motion, and Zeros holding that one together. The glue that is forming this strong defense from Team Warren. And 11-8 now. I thought that I was about to have to count Warren out of this match, but they're really finding their stride.
Oh yeah, they are 5 in a row. This is just going to keep increasing. We're going to keep incrementing forward until TGK can find some way to stop this diffuse, this post-plant setup, this execute that Warren have going for them. They're working their way up into the space effectively. That much we can give credit to Downey for. It's just holding it once they have it.
Yeah, and Downey is also doing this thing where they're trying to condition their opponent into reading this Viper wall on the opposite site as a little bit of a bait. Unfortunately, Warren is not really taking it. They're continuing to watch with extreme eyesight on this B site and being extremely patient.
Yeah, part of that is the Cypher Cam that they have set up on A for the defense. They've set it up so high over Heaven that because Downey are using a wall for the normal site, it's not going to block any line of vision. Now, we're watching Downey just sweep outwards onto B. In a blink of an eye, Zeros is alone, and they're waiting for a teammate to make any move whatsoever to just relieve some tension off of their plate. But maybe they don't need help after all.
All right, I mean, that's certainly a step in the right direction. The spike is ticking. The 2 players remaining from Warren are trying to hold this down, but it is all left up to Zeros, who it looks like is going to try and just get some exit picks. Now, though, in a 1v2, this could be a place where we see Zeros try and make whatever can happen happen. But with 2 players who are going to go for this swing, and not only that, an Aster who's going to try and pull you into an advantageous placement. The Molly is going to come through as well. The 2 remaining players from Downey shore that one up and bring them to match point.
We talk about the post plant long enough, and Downey will make the proper adaptations. I think it really came down to them losing also those particular agents. Now that I've seen the effectiveness of the team comp in action, the gravity well finally being able to be used in the post plant in tandem with the snake bite and orb.
Yeah, and I think this round also, again, this is one of the first rounds after about 5 that we are getting to see Downey take a little bit of control back. And I think it is coming from that kind of team play that we applauded them for on the defensive side, and we kind of lost it a little bit once moving to the attack. And it is a whole lot more difficult to coordinate things once you move on to the attack and after you've lost some of those players in an initial skirmish. So props to Downey for being able to take a lot of that control back. And now they're looking to end it here and now. Cosmic Divide is popped. Seekers as well, trying to gather as much information as possible, but Seven certainly is trying to have something to say about it, but only for a moment.
Here we see in the post-plant situation, it's a 1 versus 4. Low health though, R3. Poom finds the first. 2 others. All they need to do is be hit in the body once or twice.
All right, Warren, only Poom remains. Has the neural theft available, but that's the only piece of utility. That spike is ticking. Tries to find a player to use this neural theft, gather as much information as possible, but that spike, as it ticks faster, time goes further and further away. The 1v3, not possible for the side of Warren. The 3 remaining Team Downey players gets to 13 and get the first map of Bind.
Wow. Closing it out, Downey showing off just how powerful they are as a roster. Let's take a look at how that match went. I mean, this journey forward on the defense starting. Downey did an amazing job taking the lead, but eventually Warren started to fight back.
They really did fight back. I mean, I was about ready to count them out of the game, and I think that this speaks to the potential to go to a 3-game series and how we got to see Warren really start to battle back. They really started to use that coordination. They really started to rely on those early game picks, and I think that that is exactly how we got to the place where, again, I'd almost counted Warren out, and they went ahead and they were like, nah, I'm about to prove Becky wrong here.
Exactly. And we have to remember that this first map was Downey's pick. So the next 2 upcoming, Haven and Ascent, that's what Warren decided on. So we'll have to see how they perform on their home turf.
All right, a lot to be said for that home turf, and a lot to be said for the amount of fight that was brought by both of these teams as we go into a match number 2. But before we go into match number 2, we do have a little bit of a treat for everybody.
Yes. Those of you at home, stay tuned. We're going to go ahead and throw you guys to a little bit of a break. But those of you guys over here, we want to welcome to the stage the cheerleaders from both schools. Warren taking the stage first for their performance, followed by the side of Downey. A big round of applause. And welcome back to the Downey Unified Esports High School Championship. I'm Ashkan, joined by the wonderful Becky Bear. So, we are going to continue on to map number 2. We're coming off the tail end of a 13-8 victory for the side of Downey. But before we get into the fun, we do have one reminder. Ladies and gentlemen, we want this game to be as fun as possible, so please make some noise. But we also want it to be fair. So we do ask that you guys don't provide any information to either team. We do understand that you want to come out to support your friends and your school, but we do have to keep everything on an equal playing field.
Yeah, so don't say things like which site is being attacked or things like that. Think of it as like if you're watching an American football game where you're going to cheer for either the defense or offense, and do things like that instead of telling players where potential attacks or defense needs to happen. That would be extremely helpful for us so that we're able to keep competitive integrity, and we really appreciate it from all of you at home. And now that you've heard us make this little spiel, we greatly appreciate it. Let's get into map number 2. Will it be Downey getting a quick 2-0, or will Warren, the defending victors, bring us to a map number 3?
The defending victors on their map pick, they fought hard to bring it back in the last map. We'll see what they can do here, where they get to choose what's going to happen in a map like Haven, where there's so many more options to navigate.
Yeah, there really are a whole lot more. As you saw on the previous map, there were only 2 sites that the attackers could go to. This time around, there's going to be 3, which means the defensive side is also going to be spread a whole lot more thin and makes it that much more difficult when picking these agent compositions.
I'm really excited to see what either team brings to the table regarding those agent compositions. We've seen the meta shift so many times.
We really have.
Double initiator, double controller. Some teams want to do double sentinel, which is crazy to me, but hey, I'm always down to experiment because that's,
that's a part of Valorant.
It's the mind of science.
I was going to say, yeah, it's not only a mindset that you want going into really any profession, being able to try something new and also be able to say, hey, this didn't work. I mean, I'm sure that our players have done that a whole lot. Once again, this is Warren's map pick, so it's likely that they are coming very prepared once again with their agents that they feel comfortable on this map. And, I mean, we've gotten to see that Downey has put a whole lot of work into studying what some of those high-level picks are. As we go down into this agent select, I mean, I thought that potentially Warren was going for some of these agent selects that were kind of comfort picks based on what we saw for Bind. But now seeing them completely changed up, either these players are comfortable on a whole lot of different characters, which is admirable in its own right, or they're just trying to give us a good show.
I think it might be a little bit of both here, and also the vastness of Haven coming into play, where aggression can also be a good option when you're on the defensive side. A lot of teams, with one way or the other, whether that be through utility or taking straight up duels, want to go ahead and fight for the space on a map like this that's so vast. Meta comp, though, once again, by Downey.
I'm not too surprised by it, though there are a few meta picks for the side of Warren as well. And then it is going to be two pretty aggressive picks. Poom going for this Reyna is going to be quite interesting, and I'm excited to see how that is going to play out as well. SOS likely going to pick in this Breach, as that is one of the stronger initiators that you can go ahead and lock in on this map.
Time hit 0. We've locked in the comps. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise. It's map number 2.
I mean, if I have to say anything, it's that Warren has got to be giving the loudest cheers right now. They've got to be taking this map down if they want to go on to a map number 3 and reclaim this trophy.
Let's get right into it.
Let's do it. Our players are loading in to map number 2, as we have mentioned, and I'm excited to see how this is going to continue to shake up. We saw Warren come back in strong on that first map. Are they going to be able to hold on to that strength and take home Haven?
This is a story yet to be discovered. Let's see these pages unfold for ourselves, Becky.
I'm excited to take a peek into this book and get further and further into each of these chapters. I will mention that it is a little bit interesting that we're seeing Warren go for a double duelist composition on the defensive side start, but a lot can be said for going for these duels and seeing how much of the last map came down to early picks from those duelists. Maybe going for 2 of them, even on the defensive start, isn't that half bad.
Pro compositions, are usually effective, but you also have to know exactly how to use them. And finding the errors that Downey might have is where Team Warren want to thrive.
Ooh.
But first is the first pick of the map by Sun.
Yeah, Sun coming up very strong, has picked 2 duelists across these 2 different maps and has shown why he is on that role. And that's the team captain. It's always a little admirable to me when team captain is somebody who's picking a duelist role. Usually they're on something like an initiator.
1 enemy remaining.
It's really hard to juggle the calls and the mechanical skill at the same time. And speaking of mechanical skill, look at Poom dropping 3 to secure the round there for Warren.
And that's one of those things. I was like, the Reyna pick, it's either going to be something that's going to show a little bit of weakness, as it's not, it's hard to be as aggressive on a defensive start, but Boone shows can be aggressive on this defensive start. No worries. Gathering that first round for the side of Warren here. And now getting an aggressive buy going into this next round as well.
Yeah, to build on that point about Reyna, that defining phrase for her, feast or famine. That's exactly what Puma's going for. They're here to eat. They're here to devour the competition. Because if they don't, the whole team falls. So we'll see, and we'll be watching that player throughout this map. Now, in mid, Downey trying to make space. They need to get an opening pick. And again, snowball to get something off the hands of Warren to really make this possible. Otherwise, this 2-0 is going to be quick for Kryptonite.
All right. A quick pick, as you mentioned. And Sun not looking to get in too deep. Quickly gets that pick and gets out, rejoins the team. Isn't looking to play a solo show here. He's trying to make sure that team's got his back. He's able to hold on and continue to make plays here. A slow start into this round, trying to make sure that all of this utility is able to be coordinated perfectly, and it matters that much more when you're down on weaponry.
Oh, out goes the Trailblazer to stall for time. Right now the attackers trapped in garage. They're in a chokehold. 7 is going to go ahead and finish the job here as they push forward out from the side of C into a bit of a wider angle. Sun is not going to let that slide so easily. Finds one in C Link and pushes straight through over to A.
Yeah, this is one of the things that I was also really interested in mentioning from the side of, or the difference of going from that first map into Haven. On Haven, on Bind, we mentioned lurking a little bit, and on Haven, it is such a bigger part of this map because it is so much larger, because it is so much easier for the defensive side to move on to that attacker side. A quick shot allows for Sun to pick up a third, but 7 is also getting a piece of that pie. 1 player remains for Team Downey, but the location is known, and 7 locks up 4, but 2 for Warren.
Cleaning things up is Warren Sky, doing a great job of ensuring they stay alive for as long as possible. But it still was an expensive round nonetheless, Becky.
It really was. Every time your player falls, that means that their weaponry is going to fall as well. And when that gets dropped, that's basically money that doesn't get to be recouped going into the next round. And so on these early rounds where you haven't been able to save up your funds across multiple rounds, it feels that much more detrimental every time a player falls.
Warren are going to feel that impact for now. But this is regardless the buy round for Downey. This is something that they're expected to win. Say one.
Yeah, strong start as far as buys are concerned going into this round. But a lot of lines of sight are blocked off, making it that much more difficult for them to get aggressive. A little bit of a player trade going into this round as we see Jazina is brought in on this Omen and is going to try and hold down the fort on this A side for the side of Warren in this game.
Right now, a cheeky little position. Sun hiding from lines of sight, waiting for some utility from their teammates to get things going. There it is, the fault line and the dash out, but now they're frantically looking for a target. It's Poom, though, who strikes first, opening up the defense for everyone else to come in. Regardless, the rest of TGK finds someone to strike on, and they're going to find success following.
Yeah, now we're just in a situation where the side of Downey is trying to go for a post plant here, trying to make sure that all of their players are now the ones set up in these corners, in these places that are really difficult to check, while Warren are stuck on the outside. And this is such a difficult site in particular to retake. One of the hardest in the game, in fact, as you're stuck in this choke point, this tunnel, or going into a place where you have to fall. So Downey, a very nice capitalization in that round to get some points back into their favor.
A really smart position by Poom to play in short to find the first pick. A lot of players walking out of short on their execute tend to walk past it without fully clearing it. But an even better trade out by the entirety of TGK, just all turning on the incoming defenders rushing onto the site.
Yeah, it was really great to see them really kind of come alive now that they've been able to make these aggressive buy-ups. And for those of you who are wondering why there's a lot of this kind of dead air, why some of these rounds move slower than others, there's a lot of rounds where players will use pieces of initial utility, but then some utility has a timer set on it, and you'll be able to get those back. So a lot of the time you'll see players use utility early on in the round and then kind of wait for those pieces of utility to come back before going for the strike. And other rounds, a whole lot of collision happens really early on, like this one.
A smooth entry onto the site by Downey, but it's because Warren gave the space away, and they're fighting back with utility of their own. So far, working in their favor as they are an agent up. Sun won't let that advantage remain for long, though. Blinded by Poom, they're taken out, and it's a 1v1 where Zap takes the cake.
Zap, very nicely done alongside Sun, who really came online in that round, coming in with that Blade Storm, that kind of iconic piece of Jet utility, and something that actually allows your team to save as well. And it's one of the reasons that we see Jet as such a big mainstay of the game of Valorant. And she's kind of the poster child of Valorant as well. She's on all of Valorant's promotional material as well. And that's a big part of the reason. So beautiful to see exactly why that is one of those important pickups come alive for the side of Downey.
I like this default smoke, but a little gap, a small imperfection gives Poom the opportunity to find a single elimination down long.
That was really impressive recoil control there. I mean, normally you wouldn't expect somebody to be able to make that accurate of a shot after being able to take down that drone as well. So a very nice one coming out in an early pickup. And that breach going down for Downey, that's one of your optimal characters to have on the attacking side that allows for you to open up a lot of space.
Yeah, Downey's executions have been centered around the fault line, but Boom is just going to keep on denying all kinds of utility for their push. This time around, taking away the agent key to the post plant and getting away with it, but not for long. Where did Poot come from?
Yeah, we talked about the lurking game that happens between these players, but it looks like we're just lurks back and forth here. And when all is said and done, Downey, 2 players remaining to Warren's 3, but they are going to be able to get that spike planted. And now it's just going to be a slow movement across the map.
Tucked in the corner, being a little bit cheeky. Sun wants to go aggressive, punished for it. Zap, though, they're prepared for the post plant here, Becky. Both shock darts for the lineups and the Hunter's Fury.
Wow, the lineup so far so good is also able to go in for that peak. Finds one, has the Hunter's Fury ready to go, but the defuse is being held. And it is going to go the way of Warren in that round, despite Zap doing such a phenomenal job. The timing narrowly isn't there.
1v3. Folks, if you're wondering how to put the rabbit out of the hat, how to make magic happen, utility is the answer.
It really is. I mean, when you're able to use utility in such a great way, I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. We're taking a look at this replay. The shock dart lineups come through. Sense gets taken down. And we're ready with the lineup of the barrel of that weaponry for 7. Tries here to go for it. Unfortunately, that first half that was held by Sense ends up making a huge difference. So, I mean, we're in a close match here on Haven.
Check it out. Poot throwing the smoke down C long to deny all sorts of information. It's known as a choke point on Haven. But if you just smoke it out, a lot of utility has to be wasted to gather information. 7 there. Tosses out the guiding light, but doesn't pop it. Zeros with their neural theft. And only narrowly gets away with their life.
I was going to say, Zeros is playing with fire there. Does manage to use that neural theft, as we mentioned, gather information about the location of the attackers, but is looking a little bit worse for wear as far as HP is concerned. The rest of Downey is going to try and get the aggression back into their favor. Unfortunately, Poom, it's really difficult to line up those shots when you're making a little bit of a drop, and so Poot is going to come out on top, collecting 2 there.
Swinging into the smoke. Talk about a brave move.
Mid. 30 seconds
Brave.
left.
Brazen, overzealous, perhaps, as they drop the spike into enemy territory, but I'm not quite sure that Warren knows they have it.
Yeah, I think this is also a situation where once you're facing off against this Omen, it's just going to be able to be collected by this ultimate. Oh, I was about worried that we weren't quite on top of it there. You do really have to be careful about the placement of that from the shadows to make sure that you're going to be able to collect it, as Omen is a non-corporeal being trying to make the shift and actually puts it all together. Poot with 4 and a nice transfer there wins the round for Downey.
I have no words to describe how that made me feel. It was a disgusting show of skill.
I mean, we have to have some of those here.
Oh, I mean, look, you can't teach that.
You can't.
You can't teach that.
Spike down mid.
A lot of it. That game sense coming in strong. Finds one, a quick shift. And honestly, beautiful sense from Poot. That's half of the difficulty. If you know where multiple players are, figuring out who you're going to take out first, it's really difficult to make those decisions on the fly. So honestly, props to Poot for being able to make that decision in such short notice.
Here we see an opportunity on an imperfect smoke. Zero's waiting patiently for anyone to lurk up into garage, which may just happen. Poot tries to throw a smoke, but decides against it. Waiting around for their teammates maybe to get a little bit closer. SOS and Jet all together, so you know an execution is happening soon. First comes the flash, then the whiff from the shotgun out of Zeros. Sun following it through and going all the way into C site, but not before using an updraft to get a little bit of extra information at the back platform.
Yeah, and that information is able to go right over to SOS, who's able to make that elimination. Warren now left on the outside as that spike gets planted. Post-plant setup coming through from Downey here, and it is going to be left up to these final pieces of utility that is going to come out from Warren. Unfortunately, for that side of Warren, though, they do have a save into this one, so the odds stacked against them, but the nice hip fires coming out from Boom here. I mean, yeah, we'll take this Phantom that got left on the ground here.
It is 101 damage to the body. Makes sense for the Marshal, but doesn't turn to clear Garage. Zap with a shocking position to surprise Boom.
A difficult place from Boom to be able to fight back from. I mean, it was a 1v5, so the fact that Boom even got to in that situation is impressive. Let's not make too much noise for the other side when we really, honestly, both teams doing a phenomenal job. A back and forth match they are giving us, and Downey starting to kind of find their stride now that they've been able to buy up a little bit more reliably.
Sens, though, relegated to the Blade Storm here in this round. Usually a great ultimate to use on the offense, but on the defense, maybe not so much if you don't have any extra utility to set you up, which in this comp of Warren's, they really don't.
Very true, and we did hear that Blade Storm come out. One of the things you can also kind of listen for in the game is a lot of the characters will say things that kind of go with what's happening. Speaking of which, You Should Run says, get out of this area. I'm trying to lock it down, and you can see that that lockdown is in place. The attacking side trying to make sure that the defensive side players have to get out of this area. But on that exit, Boom is going to be able to get the better of Sun there, only to be traded out by SOS.
Spike is going down. Zero's waiting patiently for the smoke to dissipate. Doesn't want to be the first to fall on this retake. And a nice repositioning by that Omen to get up top with some verticality. Sens only has one blade to work with. Does not land it and falls while falling.
Yeah, rough place to be there. And now a lot of players from the defensive side in that funnel tunnel. And Shazina going to be the first one to try and peek out. Heal is coming through, but that means weaponry isn't out to go for these trades. And with this spike starting to tick, we've got to see the defensive players make a statement if they're going to try and take it down. But it's not going to be enough for the crossfire that Downey has set up.
And that's the key word there, crossfire. Not just a 2-point crossfire, but a 3-4-point crossfire on Graffiti, on Crate, on Default, and at Short.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that it is so difficult to really manage retaking a site like A if you don't have the ability to kind of go for those wraparounds, go for those lurks. Those 2 choke points on that site just make it so difficult for the defensive side to navigate. And so I think it makes a lot of sense that Warren is taking this time out here and trying to kind of recollect themselves here.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a disadvantage for them in the way of retakes. Because they opted for this double duelist comp, they're not going to have as much utility, like you said. What we haven't seen out of them is in the middle of the round, maybe taking more space down mid. And so do you think that there's some potential for that to happen? Or is there another form of aggression you'd like to see them opt for?
I think I would like to see them, as you mentioned, kind of go for pushes out towards mid, especially since they have this Reyna. I would like to see them go for a little bit of a lurk with that Reyna. As we mentioned, that character is very feast or famine, which is exactly what you want from a character who is going lurking, who is trying to get as many 1v1s and take people by surprise as possible. But alas, in this round, Warren are on a save, which is one of those places where you do usually hear people taking timeouts when they have those lower pieces of weaponry. They have to figure out what pieces of utility they're expending to make up for that economical difference.
I like this aggressive play to try and make
Sun?
something happen. But
What a
Sun,
Cloudburst play!
through the smoke, a timing beyond anyone's comprehension.
And that wasn't even Sun's Cloudburst. That was an enemy Cloudburst and said, hey, you know what? I'm going to make this cloud my home. And aggression from Downey that Warren might not have been prepared for. But it is around. Once again, the save was for the side of Warren. This is one that they're not expecting to be able to take. And hopefully that timeout was spent talking about how they're making a rebuttal on the round after this.
I haven't seen a Cloud adopted like that since Goku and Nimbus. And the way that they just walk through with such confidence.
Really?
As well. That smoke is nowhere near as long as it used to be. All the way at beta when it was like 7, 8 seconds. Now it's maybe 2.5.
It really is not long, but Sun ended up using it to his advantage. Beautiful to see. And I think you said a key word here, which is confidence. I think once you're able to see players who are used to playing together, who are, again, confident in their own abilities, the way that they move across the map, the way that they present themselves in the game just becomes so much more apparent.
Right now, it looks like we're just setting up with a clean execute after the Rolling Thunder. But it's breaking the tripwire. That's going to be one of the most important aspects of this push. It happens fast, and so comes the pick. But we need a little bit more to justify the ult. It looks like Warren made a swift decision to get out of dodge.
Yeah, I like that decision. It's really difficult to fight if you're concussed up, so let's just try and come back into it from a different area. Empress in play for Poom, tries to go for that blind that allows for this third pick to come up. This could be the ace for Poom if we're able to get back onto this site and eliminate these final 2 players. Goes for these 1v1s. Jet versus the Reyna, and the Reyna is going to come out on top. That Empress allowing for this overheal to come through regardless while this spike is ticking. Those nanoswarms do get popped, and will this be enough? Those nanoswarms are down. Will this peak come through? It does, and are we going to be able to win this battle? We do not. Xin locks it up for Downey. A brilliant fight from Warren, but it's narrowly not enough.
It's just such a difficult position to play from. You know exactly where the enemy is. You see the mollies on the ground. You try to break one. You see one pop. Okay, they have to be long. They're waiting for a tap. But just because you know what's coming doesn't mean you can do anything to stop it.
Yeah, if anything, it just makes you a little bit more anxious in that moment, and you're just doing your best to try and keep your cool as much as possible. And I think that's kind of the name of the game right now for Warren. We saw them be even more behind than this in that first map, and we also saw them almost come back. So they are by no means out of this match, especially considering that they have 2 very good ultimates at their ready right now.
Changing the pace up once again. We saw Downey for a while there play towards mid a ton, spending a lot of utility to clear garage. This time around, approaching A.
Oh, Poot senses. Will it be enough here? Trying to make sure that they're able to swiftly push onto site, but I like this adaptation from Warren. We know that they've struggled in a post-plant situation, so trying to put more players onto this A site, it makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately for the side of Warren, maybe being a little bit too aggressive here as Downey collect and make their move.
Sun didn't come to play. He's here to take it all.
Is here to get that trophy. That recon bolt is going to come out and try and gather information because of that quick collapse that happened onto A. Warren made movements that are going to do bad things to them now as they're trying to make these rotations, trying to make these pincer maneuvers. But as that bomb is ticking, there's only so much time that they have.
That flash through the wall comes out. A dink through the wall as well by Poom. Finishes it with the rest of the Spectre to the body. Tries to cross the back of the platform, but denied that by Poot. All alone, the opposing Omen. It's Jez who needs to defuse, has smokes to play with. Good for one, but gets revealed.
Oh, this is a rough place to be. Has a line here and is just going to try and hold this defuse, but unfortunately, I mean, I think the name is Zap for a reason, and it's because of the shock bolts that we're seeing.
Shock darts.
I mean, we got to see them earlier in this game. We're seeing them here again now, and Downey is looking so strong here. And I do have to shout out Jazina there, who made some very nice decisions, was able to make these relocations, despite the amount of utility that is just so difficult to deal with on the ground and on that post plant. I do think that, once again, Warren had a strong rebuttal once they were on bind and once they moved on to their attacking side, and I think that it's likely to be the same here as well.
Got a little bit of info there off the guiding lights. little bit of few positions being swapped here by Warren on the defense in this last round. Hopefully to catch Downey by surprise, but I don't think Warren is aware of just how much space Downey has.
An unfortunate meet of the two Jets at the start of this round. And it is going to be a quick pick across multiple portions of the map here. Downey
Spike planted.
trying to have a flashy showing to the end of this first half.
There we go. Jazina picking one up.
Okay, this is the kind of lurking action that I was anticipating to see from Warren. Throws out that paranoia and is going to see if we can find any more. Unfortunately, goes down before that paranoia is able to do much more. Boom on the scene, but Boom's not able to bring that one home. It's going to be another 9-3 half here between Downey and Warren.
A long journey, and one that very similarly parallels our last map.
It really does. So, I mean, I, once again, normally wouldn't have anticipated Warren to come back in the same fashion that they did on map number 1, but I would almost expect them to do even better on this map. As we take a look at these halftime replays, we're going to talk a little bit about the composition that Warren has that I think lends them very nicely to being able to strongly play an attacking side half. It's a little bit of a risky decision that they made to go for this kind of attack slanted composition when they're starting out on defense, but I do think that after we got to see how they play attack on bind, that they are very strong, they're much more coordinated on attack, and now that we're getting to see this team composition that should have an attacking side strength, I would anticipate them to get quite a few rounds back into their favor, as we're already off to a quick start here and a plant already in play.
Boom, trying to find some shots onto the Omen in garage, doesn't quite land them. Immediately turns to aid the rest of the squad, fighting an all-out war on the A-Link, where 7 is able to find one, but Sun returning the favor. So low are the team of Downey, but still with numbers up. Boom, though, handling them all with ease.
We said feast or famine, and this Reyna is eating. I mean, the Devour making such a big difference. It is one of the most important and pivotal pieces of utility on a pistol round. And there we get to see exactly why. You're able to heal so much damage that not even any of the healing characters in the game can make happen. And boom, with 4 picks, solidifies this first round into Warren's favor.
Now, to your point about Warren's team comp, do you feel that they're going to get affected by the fact that they don't have a Sova going into a Killjoy?
I think it's going to be a little bit difficult, but we might be able to see the Trailblazer able to do a lot of the things that you're expecting that Recon Bolt to do, but I think some of the information is not going to be exactly as pinpointed as you would normally like, but I think you can kind of make it work with the Sky nonetheless. And I think if you're also having 2 duelists who are going to be pushing their way onto site, you're going to be able to check a lot of those corners, especially with Arena and the Leers.
Those blinds are going to be integral. Downey, on the other hand, coming in with all the utility that their composition comes with and some marshals.
Oh.
Taking these long-range fights with confidence. And this is totally possible for Sun here.
Whoa! Okay, Sun clashing strongly. Unfortunately, pulls out the knife, and Jazina with 3 is going to be able to make sure that Warren take the round that was rightfully theirs. Sun almost ripped the rug out from under them.
That one had me on the edge of my seat for sure, Becky.
Oh yeah, I was leaning back, and then all of a sudden I was so far forward that I almost flipped out of my seat.
And it was shot after shot too. It wasn't a reset needed, no time necessary. Sun just kept things going smooth as butter.
I mean, we talked about it already. Sometimes that recoil makes things so difficult for you to do, and one of those was a hip fire too. I mean, impressive and unfortunate end there, but nonetheless, did a lot of damage to the economy of the side of Warren. So not a bad start here for the team of Downey. And this is what you would kind of expect to see. And this is what I think we saw Sun do a lot on the defensive side on Bind as well. Go for those aggressive peaks, try to get those first picks, and then just back up. Go join our Sentinel. Make sure that we're safe.
Boom, taking a lot of space in garage and using that Leer to get Omen off of the angle. threatening a fight on either side, but Poots is ready for them.
Yeah, the collision of Poot and Poom, and unfortunately it does go Poot's way. Thankfully, Sense is there for the trade back. Zap with the lurk is going to make sure that Jazina is not going to join back up with those teammates. The final two attacking players trying to decide if this B site is going to be safe enough for them to go for this plant.
Making a little bit of noise here. Sense tries to find their way not out of the site, but instead deeper in it. Forced into a corner by this fault line. They're getting approached, but no one checks the corner. Sense gets away with an active 3, but taken out at the last second.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those great moments where you're happy that it's a 4v2 if you're on the side of Downey. Sure, you have one player who wasn't able to check that corner, but at least you got the teammates still to be able to back you up. And that's going back into something that we talked about early on. Downey has praised themselves for having good synergy and good teamwork. They said they had to work on their communication, but so far it seems like it isn't as much of a problem for them as they would have led me to believe.
I mean, that is the epitome, the sign of high-level players is always expecting better of themselves.
Keep up.
And absolutely they are.
All right, a save now for Warren. Things will be looking a little bit more rough for them going into this round, but they're going to try and see if they can make the most of it. But Downey said, if you're on a save, we're going to try and shut this one down as quickly as possible and find themselves 11 in, I think that round was only not even 10 seconds.
Are we setting world records here? Is that what we're trying to do?
They might be trying to. I think they've got to be pretty close there, as Zero's the only one able to collect a pick there. But it's not going to be enough. This is now an equalized round, both full buys for these teams. But the advantage does slightly go to Warren as they have 3 ultimates at the ready. One of them not exactly going to be the most impactful for a full buy round, but we do have the Empress and the Seekers, so we have one of those extremely powerful dueling ultimates as well as a strong information gathering ultimate as well.
That Empress does have to be used particularly though, because we saw it backfire in that long-range gunfight clutch over at C-Long.
Oh, very true. It does make you fire faster, and we've already talked about recoil so much in this match, and if you're going fast, sometimes that's going to make your recoil do some crazy things. Zap, unfortunately, takes a flurry of utility that makes it so difficult to continue to defend that site. And now it is going to be Warren posting up and trying to situate themselves for this post plant.
Sending out the dark cover to cover C-Long is Poom, but they're taken out by Poom once again. These two meeting head-to-head constantly.
They really do meet head-to-head every single time as 7, the dog bite takes out Zin. That Trailblazer also not coming to play. And this could be a situation where we see Downey go for a save. Once again, this round is going to go the way of Warren, but considering that Sun has this operator, it's more of a long-range piece of weaponry. Sun only has 4 HP. It's going to be a decision to save here and try and get some exit picks, since it's really difficult to kind of go for some of those retakes when you don't exactly have the tools in your kit to make it work how you would like to.
But retakes aside and looking at the initial hold, Becky, how do you think that operator changes the way that Warren has to approach the sites knowing Jet has an operator as opposed to Jet having a normal weapon?
Yeah, so that operator is going to mean that a lot of those long-range fights or long-range angles that you would normally like to peek and be able to use pieces of utility to figure out where defensive players are hiding, you have to be that much more careful, because we could have this kind of one-hit takedown weapon that's going to make getting those easy picks that much more easy for the side of Downey.
Speaking of picks, instead of the defense starting with them, it is Poom and Sense coming through. Forget picks. This is just straight up executions towards the site to open it up.
Yeah, I mean, executions
Spike
and
planted.
executed. Warren have found their way onto this site. Sun, the only player remaining. We saw a save in the last round, and I think we're here to see yet another save. And this is kind of one of the downfalls to picking up some. I mean, you'd be saving regardless of your weapon in this situation if you're Sun, so this is kind of just like how you would expect this to go. But when you don't have yourself placed in the right area or you don't move with the operator, you do kind of find yourself in this place where you're like, okay, I can't regress into situations super easily. But as we mentioned before, it does mean that Warren has to be that much more careful with their initial utility, with their initial peaks, as well as that much more careful with their smokes. Zeros, though, no shoulder to be seen. A little bit of peeker's advantage there. And that operator gets taken out of the hands of Downey. Warren looking pretty strong here.
Just to touch on it a little bit more, Becky, it feels as if that jet gets anchored down to a site very much similar to a Sentinel, as if that class changes entirely.
Yeah, and that is kind of a downside to picking up something like that operator. And usually that is something that we kind of try to see movement of as much as possible, because that also leads to unpredictability, which then leads to people kind of slacking on checking as many of those corners or being prepared for that operator at a lot of those angles.
Now we're seeing a much different approach there by Warren as they slowly work their way up initially, but dropping a lot of utility is going to give away any sign of secrecy.
Oh, Sun trying to make things happen, but Zeros is here to lock it down. We talked about it last time. It's so difficult to retake this site. The shock bolts come in, but the spike has already been planted, and Zeros continues to rack up the eliminations.
Warren really digging in the heels to force extra rounds, chaining them together.
Flash comes through. SOS able to get 2 before going down there. I mean, Warren, they were able to get to 8 last time before Downey closed the door. Will they be able to break this streak?
It's going to be a tough one for Downey. They have to adapt, they have to improvise, they have to change up how their tactics are being executed upon. It feels as if they've been read a little bit. And if they don't change what's going on, I think they're going to fall to the same fate over and over and over again.
We'll see if that will be the case. 1 point off from match point, and Downey are trying to get themselves into a good position. Let's take a look at some replays here from this round. And you can just see how much more kind of careful Warren were in this round, where they placed a lot of those smokes, really trying to make sure that a lot of those long angles were blocked off as much as possible.
A lot more precise and careful, in addition to confident. As soon as they found that there was only one player left on the defense, they were more than happy to take those duels to just work themselves up.
Yeah. And we talked about confidence when we were watching Downey on their attacking side, and it's cool to see Warren, despite being down a little bit, also find their confidence and be able to work their way back into this match. I mean, I applauded them for it on Bind, and I'm going to do the same for it here on Haven as well. 2 ultimates ready for them, that Empress as well as that From the Shadows, to face down From the Shadows of Downey's own and a Hunter's Fury. So a lot of pieces of utility now in an equalized round for both of these teams.
Walking up down long is Poon, Trailblazer to follow. But still, Warren spread around the map. They've got a lot of room to work with. They just need to figure that out for themselves. A little bit extra patience could reward them here in this round, Becky, as they could discover the positions of a stack.
Yeah, I was going to say, we saw that Trailblazer come through, and I believe that it was able to see all 3 defensive players on that A site. So with that information, Warren is going to try and figure out where exactly they're executing, where exactly they're lurking, and make their decisions accordingly.
That being said, cutting silence for too long may prompt Downey to switch things up. However, it hasn't been very characteristic of them. For a lot of their defense, they've really only rotated once the retake was necessary.
Yeah, so far a slow movement and capitalization upon the rotation coming through. Some of those players of Downey on that defensive side moving potentially a little bit too early, falling prey to those cues that Warren went ahead and fed them. 2 players against the 5 from Warren, and this was a strong execution, surgically done, and they're being rewarded for it.
In a 2 versus 5 situation, Downey have few choices. The most prominent one being a save. Poot trying to do a little bit of damage to the economy, unable to find the accuracy needed to go through with the job, but still though, that's only icing on the cake. All they need to do is survive.
Yeah, I think this is also an interesting thing that we're getting to see from the side of Downey as we go between these final 2 remaining players, and seeing that they have pretty much all of their utility left to their devices as well. There's a lot to be said for if you use no utility and your opponent took the site. Was it because you didn't use one of those pieces of utility? That's certainly something to look at as you go into further rounds.
Absolutely. And a lot of it has to do, I think, with also Breach's positioning. Taking that traditional spot over an A link, kind of unable to throw flashes in a way that is conducive to making plays with their A site or B site hold. They can only really use that fault line and react as almost like a living sentry.
Yeah, a little bit of a broken buy here for the side of Downey, so some weakness to be had there as Sun takes a little bit of fire and is able to move back to safety before falling, but it is going to be the quick push from Warren, and they have placed themselves trying to get this spike down, but this Hunter's Fury is going to try and do as much damage as possible, but we do thankfully have those healing hands of Sky to try and mend that.
With the operator shot resounding, Warren declare that they have an operator in hand for this post plant. And they will continue to scream it loud as a second pick is found, and Jez closes this one out, bringing this match closer than it has ever been.
Very close indeed as Warren, the Bears starting to roar, starting to find their voice and string a lot of these rounds together. And I mean, this is kind of what we anticipated. The way that they were playing on that defensive side, their team comp was really difficult on a map that is as big as Haven. They don't have a lot of utility to bridge how large and how much space they have to take up. But when they're on the attacking side and these 5 characters and their utility only has to be focused on one site in particular, it all of a sudden changes the chemistry of the game so much.
Zeros taking their time with the rest of the team. What I've noticed from Warren, Becky, is that they usually travel as a pack. Very few times have they gone 1-3-1.
Yeah, they're really not defaulting very much at all. Not going for a lot of those lurk plays that we were kind of talking about might kind of come to fruition. This time around, Moon is at least going for a little bit of a rotation, but SOS very nicely able to shut this one down. Readies that Rolling Thunder and deploys it. Every single player from the attacking side does get knocked up there, and it's going to be a quick pop out. Sun's going to try and collect that piece of weaponry, and it is just Sense left far away. Will Sun be able to make it work? No cloud bursts left. This long range, you have to be a sitting duck to go for it here, but will the shots through the wall be enough? It will for Sun to shut down that power coming through.
Surely we got a replay for that one. We got to break that down.
Surely.
I mean,
we do.
From within the cage, one tap, random pre-fire. The tailwind to gather information across the screen, knowing that there's a potential operator holding the line, gets that information, jiggles to bait out a shot, and then once again pre-firing through the wall, knowing that it is malleable, and finishing the round off.
Yeah, truly a extremely masterful display of game sense coming out from Sun there and taking that round and bridging Downey into this match point. They are one away from bringing this series home. And while they're on a little bit of a save here, Zin is still able to collect one before falling, but that does prompt Poom to pop the Empress.
Spike down.
I know exactly.
Time ticking away. Neural theft active. Information being given now to the side of Warren. Downey, however, taking a very standard approach. Breach with the full kit. SOS starts with the fault line, has both flashes, could use the aftershock, runs in dry instead, leading to a fatal result. Downey now taking the lead.
Downey in the lead, but Warren fighting as hard as they can. Something that we haven't had the chance to talk about so far. We're now at 11-12. If we get to a 12-12, we will go into overtime here. And overtime simply means that we will trade back and forth between attacking and defense until one team is able to win, both an attacking and defensive side, so winning by 2 points. And Downey, they're on the back foot, so if I had to take a little guess as to where this is going to go, I'm smelling an overtime. Oh, but the aggression coming out from Downey says we're not even worried about the fact that we are on lower weapons here.
Talk about a change of tempo.
Yeah, really true. And an early pick, that Cypher going down, I mean, you got to be happy to have an early pick, but if you're Warren, that's not the worst character to lose early on, but it does already start to slow this tempo extremely because regardless, Zeros has been one of those players that has been entering even despite being on something like the Cypher.
It's that understanding that no matter what role you may be on, at the end of the day, as long as the site is opened up, that's what really matters.
Yeah, this is a scary place to be for the side of Downey. They heard that from the shadows come through. Does that mean that a rotation is going to be in the cards for Warren, or are they going to continue to go where they started? And as a result, we are going to be getting some of that Killjoy utility information to let the side of Downey know. And as a result, that defensive side Killjoy ultimate is going to come through. The bomb still gets planted, but the rotations quickly off of site are going to have to come through as well. And Sun gets caught, melee out. Not where you want to be, but we've equalized to a 3v3. Let's a re-up on some of these smokes.
Yeah, this is a very dangerous position to play. You don't normally want to go long when the defenders have a controller.
Come through anyway. The defuse does come through. Wow. What a round for Downey to be able to take a 3v3, but you get to see the importance of vision, the importance of timing. What a game.
And what a series as well, as Downey take the first map of Bind 13-8 and the second of Haven 13-11. Ladies and gentlemen, please make some noise for your champions.
And that is going to be the Downey Vikings, aka TGK, the Good Kittens. Honestly though, Warren played very well. They defended their title so strong. And that's just one of those moments, I mean, you get so kind of anxious, kind of caught up in the moment. There's the lights, you're playing in it, not from the comfort of your own home. A lot of things end up making such a huge difference. And I really do have to give it to Warren for making a strong fight against Downey here.
And with that victory for Downey, they're going to go ahead and be awarded a couple of trophies, rings, that $1,000 in computer supplies. But before we get into everything and close out our day and to what we're doing later on with Alan, let's take a look at our replays.
Yeah, our replays that show how Downey got to this point, and honestly, the strong fight that Warren brought to the table. And we do get to see, once again, just the strong plays, the strong teamwork that came out from Downey. They really did get to show what I heard from them at the start of the night, that they are a team that plays together, that they're trying to use as much of their utility, as much communication as they can to be able to play in synchronization. And in the end, that is what got them this win.
Indeed. Synchronization, communication, and all the skills necessary to succeed, not just in esports, but further in life. That's what we do here at Carrot. That's what we do with 2NU.
And beautiful to see that final end and the players coming together and congratulating one another. Once again, a big congratulations to Downey Esports for taking home this victory.
Now then, for those of you at home, thank you for tuning in. Make sure to follow, subscribe, and stay in touch because these teams will compete further down the line next year for more prizes.
And of course, just make sure that you're subscribing and following so that you can show that there's a reason that we should continue to support young people in esports. For the final time this evening, I've been Becky Bear, joined here by Ashcon. Say goodbye to the people, Ashcon.
We'll see you guys next time.